So I started with some work from Brene Brown, Atlas of the Heart, which is all about emotions. And I kind of noticed something in there that I was interested in exploring more, which is the whole thing around being invisible and true belonging, meaning that we have to be able to be who we are. So she defines belonging as being accepted for you and fitting in as being accepted for being like everyone else. And then it's not that we don't have any social interaction, it's that we don't have meaningful social interaction. So, an intimate relationship, friendships, family, here as well, the interactions and the connection that we have with each other here. Sometimes we have that at work, sometimes we have it in family or with friends. And that can be a little bit more difficult to manage because a lot of the people who are around us are people who happen to be in our vicinity or happen to be our siblings or happen to be our colleagues. Whereas an intentional group like we are here, it's not so high stakes if we go, well, I joined in a couple times. I didn't really connect with it, so I'm just going to leave it and go on to something else. And I'm sure we've all had experiences like that. And then we come in this particular group, the people that come all the time and who are forming this community together, we have found something here that we're interested in engaging with. The connection bringing this purpose and meaning to our lives. If we're feeling disconnected and lonely and like either the people around us don't get us, don't appreciate us, or we don't have enough people around us in our life. And people who have strong connections, friendships, it might be intimate partner relationships, it might not be. They tend to be healthier, happier, and able to cope with stress better. They've done a lot of studies on that and actually found that healthy relationships are very integral in terms of lifespan and satisfaction in life and being happy. Connection, these are bleeding hearts. They're called. My mother used to have a bleeding heart bush. And the connection, our urge for connection, our really survival imperative for connection is in our neurobiology. It's in our nervous system. We really need to have other people on our side, and we share in the responsibilities for food gathering and protection. And we need to be connected with other people. So many times with trauma, for so many of us, we have a lot of experiences of being hurt by other people. And then instead of making a bid for connection when we feel lonely, we don't turn to people when we feel like we need support. We turn to behaviors and substances. So we turn to food or drugs or alcohol or gaming or something else that's not ultimately satisfying, that actually doesn't help us to feel better or to feel connected. We are all here to be seen, known, and loved. And invisibility is one of the most painful human experiences. So some of this is conscious. When I had first come out in the 70s, I was in a workplace where I wasn't really wanting people to know. And I was invisible, but I knew I was invisible. I knew I was hiding. And then as time went on and, I was in different workplaces that were more open, then I could be more of who I was. But there's also that hidden invisibility where we just don't feel safe enough in a group or with a person to really bring forward all of who we are. And that kind of invisibility is really limits our connection. So we have this impersonal visibility. I love that image of two people's masks having a relationship, but it's also really poignant. We don't feel like we could allow ourselves to be known. And especially if we're in some kind of a social situation where we feel like we can't really be who we are, we have to fit in order to be accepted. And sometimes those are very high stakes, like family or work or something. But if we're fitting in and we're not, for instance, letting people know who we are, or maybe that we're not challenging a racist comment or something, then we have that feeling of kind of an icky feeling. We don't feel strong. We might be giving ourselves a hard time for that. Or we might just have this murkiness of being shut down or just not feeling really welcome. And then there's from interpersonal invisibility, and this is from Brene Brown in Atlas of the Heart. She goes into group invisibility and then representational invisibility. So, for instance, in groups, women are often not seen as serious or as capable of being a leader unless they act like a man. And I remember reading in the 80s, so many women were starting their own businesses, in part because that way they could really be who they are. But that's a big control on our behavior when we have to be like the dominant group. There's other ways of representational invisibility, like not being seen as a viable friend or a romantic partner. For instance, if you are someone who is a heavier weight, oftentimes people will put you in the friend zone, but not really think about you as somebody that they might be sexually attracted to. If you have someone who's going to kind of a so-called high-class social situation and you don't have that experience of, maybe you don't have the kind of clothes that everyone else is wearing, or you don't have the manicure that all the women have. And so someone else might just make that assumption for you, like, well, they're not going to fit in, so I'm not going to invite them there. Let's take a moment to focus in on what's coming up for you now. I'm sure there's examples that come in as we're looking at these. We've all experienced interpersonal invisibility, and most of us have experienced the other ones as well. So, is there times when you felt you were the one excluded or feeling invisible? Maybe you were witnessing it. We've all experienced that as well, seeing that happen to other people. Let yourself stay in touch with your body and your breath. Notice what comes up as examples. And something that's a little bit harder to sit with is when we participated in it somehow. Maybe we didn't challenge the bully in the group. Maybe we were the bully, but also maybe we were the one who really made an effort to actively include someone when we sensed that they were being ostracized in a group. Notice we all have a range of experiences with that. This wanting to fit in is really primal. So it's something that we all do, mostly unconscious, until we bring our awareness to it. So Judith Jordan is a resource that Brene has in her book talking about disconnection when one person misunderstands, invalidates, excludes, humiliates, or injures the other person. And that when we can respond in an authentic way, then we feel like there's a hope there that we could make an amends or we could grow from the experience. And of course, for many of us, our experience with addressing things like that hasn't always gone that well. And so we're hesitant to do that as well. When we are able to offer our most vulnerable and powerful self to be really seen, and then we have that nonverbal, deeper connection, spiritual connection. We offer trust, respect, kindness, affection. Bring to mind some relationships where that is the case, where you're not walking on eggshells all the time, where you're able to take a risk and offer a different opinion or just be more of who you are, be more relaxed and open. Bring to mind a person, a group of people where that's more the case. And the other thing she's saying here is that we can't love someone more than we love ourselves. But this journey of healing trauma, there's a lot of interpersonal work that we're doing. And really, before we can even get into that, we need to be able to be less harassed by our inner critic. We need to have more compassion, more acceptance, more patience for ourselves. We need to be able to do a lot of that inner work. And it's not like we have to do it all completely, but we need to be at least on that journey. And as we are more loving with ourselves, more accepting, then it just naturally opens up that we feel less fear. So she's saying it's not fear that's getting in the way of connection, it's our armor. So we feel fear and we armor up because we don't want to feel it again. We predict with our negativity bias, we predict that we're going to be hurt again if we are vulnerable. And that's not conscious mind. That's really our unconscious mind, our nervous system, that's making that prediction for us. Let's sit with this for a little bit. Belonging that asks us to betray ourselves is not true belonging. Brene Brown really likes to say exactly what's going on. True belonging is the spiritual practice of believing in and belonging to yourself so deeply that you can share your most authentic self with the world and find sacredness in both being a part of something and standing alone in the wilderness. True belonging doesn't require you to change who you are. It requires you to be who you are. As we sit with that, it requires me to be who I am. What's your sense of what would have to shift or open? Who am I that I'm not really letting other people know? It requires you to be who you are. We can probably also come up with a lot of examples of times when we haven't spoken up or we've held back or we haven't maybe not betrayed ourselves in that strong sense, but we haven't really been true to ourselves either. Notice your body, notice your breath. Let's go into the inquiry. Some people like to just close their eyes and be aware of what's happening in the body. Other people might like to journal or something. However, you want to do this is fine. Some ways I have pretended in order to fit in. What are some of the things that come to mind? And as specific as possible is better. Who was there? How old were you? What were the stakes if you didn't try to fit in? A lot of these examples, if we're at school or at work or in a family, they're pretty high stakes. We really need to fit in, or there's going to be some consequences that are going to be difficult. So what specifically comes to mind? And as you're working with that, you could get into more of the details. So, what exactly was it that you were hiding, or what were you pretending in order to fit in? Maybe you were hiding that one of your parents was mentally ill, or was addicted, or in jail. Maybe you were hiding a learning disability or your sexual orientation. There's so many things. So, just to be specific, we'll give this a couple of minutes. What were the specifics on that experience? Stay connected in your body. You might notice sensations or energy in your body. You might sit with that for a little bit, especially if it's feeling kind of intense. Notice the location, notice where you feel it, and then notice the space around it. Be on the lookout for an inner critic if you feel like you're really being mean to yourself about this. And see if you could step that back. Say, no, this is not okay to give myself a hard time about this. I was not able to be as brave as I would like to be. I was hiding something because I didn't know how to do it in a way that would have been more genuine. So really, you could put your hand on your heart or bring some compassion in. We're not bad people that we've done this, that we've been hiding or pretending. We were in a situation where we didn't know what else to do. Continue to breathe. See if you could bring some compassion in. If you were younger at the time, a lot of these examples come from when we were in school, for instance. You might bring up an image of yourself at that time. What was going on? And could you be supportive and kind to yourself now as you're thinking about this, inquiring into it? What does it feel like in your body as you accept that you just didn't feel comfortable, you didn't fit in? And then we took some steps to try to make that better, to try to belong, even though it probably wasn't working all that well. And now let's move into working with that. So, the same situation, shift your perspective and shift your body posture as well. So, if you notice that you're slumped down or you're looking down or that you're really engaged with how you felt not so good in your body, see if you could just open your eyes, look around, lift your eyes up. You might want to move your body a little bit. You could take a few deeper breaths. So, if you could have a do over, or maybe you have a situation in your adult life now where it's similar enough dynamic. So, first of all, if you're working with that younger self, what would be helpful for them to know, for your younger self to know? One of the things that comes to mind is that how could we possibly know how to do this a different way if that wasn't something that was modeled for us, if we didn't have support? One of the things we could do is to try to let our younger self know that they didn't do anything wrong, and they might feel shame around that. They probably experience shame, but that's not correct in the sense of it doesn't belong on us. We were just doing our best. We were trying to fit in, and sometimes we were hiding or pretending. If you could offer yourself that compassionate connection, notice that for a few breaths. And then, how might you bring what you've just been working with into your life now? So, to be and express more fully who I am, these are some steps that I could take. It could be anything. Notice what comes to mind and notice your automatic assessment. Like, well, I could march into my boss's office and say blah, blah, blah. And part of you is probably like, whoa, I don't think that's a good idea. So notice your reaction in your body. That was kind of an obvious example, but there's often a holding back or a, this is too risky. So what we're doing right now is we're not actually doing the situation. We're not actually going into that office and saying anything. We're experimenting. So, what is it that I would like to express more fully? And then do a bit of a slow motion. Imagine yourself in the situation. Notice who's here. Notice your body language. Allow yourself to breathe, to sit up, and to say whatever it is that you need to say. However that goes. And then let that go on to pause for a minute. We're going to come back to it in a moment. But let's do this power practice of breathing and shaking. So cyclic sighing for 1 minute. So deep double inhale through the nose, and then a long exhale through pursed lips. Deep inhale. Let everything else move to the background. Deep double inhale. As you're breathing out, let any tension release out of your body. Maybe you were kind of hunkered down or feeling tense through your neck and shoulders. Let that release. And then you could either stand or stay in your seat. Let's shake the tree. Let yourself your whole body shake. If you're standing, knees, hips, let yourself move around your shoulders. You could throw energy off the ends of your fingers. Put your hands up and throw it into the ground. Moving that energy of the way it feels when we're trying to fit in. We're moving that out of the body for a moment. And then come back to breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth. If you want, you could use that syllable voo as you breathe out. Let your body come back into a power position, like not slumped over, but just relaxed and strong. Breathing in, breathing out. Voo. Let yourself settle. Voo. And let your breath come back to normal. And now bring to mind that same example. To be and express more fully who I am, I will And let yourself get specific. I will say to that person this thing, whatever that is for you. Or I will not answer the phone next time. I don't want to get together with them, or whatever it is. See yourself doing it with confidence. We're not pretending that it doesn't feel scary a bit, probably. We don't have to be in a big fight response in order to do it. Grounded, calm determination and confidence. See yourself making that statement or taking that step. I don't like it when you yell at me. Please lower your voice. And then let the inquiry move a little bit to the back. Look and see what you experienced. Notice what you experienced, but also notice what you might want to bring forward